Hey guys, how's it going? So it has been a while, and I come to you from my old iPhone camera, because I don't have my good camera with me because I left it in my friend's car. Um, I will get that back from her. I'll see her on Monday. But the reason it's in her car is because we just got back from a road trip. We went down to Texas. She is going to be moving to Texas in the fall, and we were looking at apartments. And she found an apartment that she liked. And we also drove on the way back. We went up through Arkansas and drove through the Ozarks because that was something I was interested in, just seeing the Ozarks. We didn't do any hiking or anything. We both kind of wanted to get back in a relatively timely manner because we have papers and a midterm to work on. But along the way, we stopped at a few bookstores. We stopped at a used bookstore in Denton called Recycled Books, CDs, and Records. I believe that's what it's called. And then we stopped at Half Price Books, which is a chain bookstore centered in Dallas that obviously is used books. It has both used and new, I believe, actually. And it was nice. I had no idea that Half Price Books existed. It's a chain bookstore that is, as far as I can tell, it's unique to Texas. It's, as I said, centered in Dallas. So it was just cool to find a chain bookstore that wasn't Barnes and Noble. But anyway, and then we stopped in Arkansas at the Dixon Street bookstore in Fayetteville, which was great to go there again. I mentioned it a couple videos ago. It's this insanely great bookstore with just labyrinths of bookshelves, of used books. But the first book I have today for this haul is just a book I bought kind of on impulse at the local bookstore here in the town I live in. I bought it actually because as a reward because I found out on that day that I got accepted to a PhD program. But it's a Hitch 22, Christopher Hitchens' memoir, and I have made no secret of my Hitchens phase that I'm still in the midst of, and yeah, I think this will be cool. I know he talks a lot about books he's read and have influenced him, and I love reading about stuff like that, about books that people have read. And also I just like Hitchens' writing, obviously, so yeah, I'm excited to read this. And then the next two books come from the used bookstore in Denton. So the first is Twilight of the Idols by Friedrich Nietzsche, which I actually got interested in reading after reading Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human by Harold Bloom, because he talks about this book a fair amount in there, because at one point in it, Nietzsche discusses Hamlet, the play Hamlet, and the character Hamlet. And I understand that this book is about more than just Hamlet, I know that. But still, I was interested in reading it for those parts and for whatever else in it would be of interest. So yeah, there's that. Next is what I thought was a great find. It's Emerson's Essays, first and second series. So yeah, just a really nice hardcover of all of Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays. It's kind of one of those authors who's on my bucket list, or been on my bucket list for a long time. And I'm much more likely to actually get around to reading him if the book is sitting here on my shelf judging me. So yeah, there's that. These next books all come from Half Price Books. So there is The Divine Comedy by Dante, and this is a Wordsworth Classics edition. I believe the translation is by Henry Francis Carey, who I've never heard of, but I'm just glad to have a copy because this is a classic that's been much on my mind lately as something I wanted to read, and I figure, it was there for $4, so why not? If I don't love the translation, that's okay. I can read another one later in life, but that. And the next three are all, as Steve Donahue might say, real classics. Classics of Greece and Rome. So I have The Essential Horace, which I began earlier today on the ride home. And the poetry so far is only okay. It's a couple parts that I've liked, but others have just been not doing much for me, which I'm guessing is more of a fault of the translator than of Horace, because, I figure 2,000 years of readers can't be wrong about a poet, but I don't know. So yeah, there's Horace. The next one is one that I finished yesterday, I also read while we were driving, is The Poems of Catullus, and of course the sticker is covering the title, but I promise you this is The Poems of Catullus. So yeah, a Penguin classic, and it has a nice introduction, and the nice thing about the Penguin classics is their introductions and how they give you a nice grounding in how to interpret the poet's work and things like that, and that helps me get a lot more out of them. And I did end up really enjoying this. Two long poems in particular, poem 64 and poem 68, I really liked. They're the two longest poems, and they were my two favorite. There were other poems in here that I didn't care for as much, but still, I thought the translations were really nice. So there's that. And then Hesiod and Theognis, and of course the sticker once again covers the title. But Hesiod and Theognis, two old Greek poets. I don't know, I've never heard of Theognis actually until I saw this book. But again, there's a nice introduction here, which will give me a nice introduction to who he is and his work. And then there's Hesiod, whose Theogony I've wanted to read for a long time. I'm really interested in creation myths. And the Theogony is kind of as I understand it, a creation myth, the main creation myth for the Greeks. So there's that, and then I have the books from the Dixon Street bookstore. The first of which is also a classic from Greece, the Odes of Pindar. I know very little. Actually, I really know nothing about Pindar. But I've wanted to read him because he's another one of those classic Greek/Roman poets. And because Edith Hamilton talks about him a little bit in her book Mythology, because some of his poems are about mythology. So there's that. And once again, a Penguin classic, so it'll have a nice introduction to help me kind of get acclimated with Pindar's work. And then the next three here, I have The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. Another classic, and it's a Penguin classic, so again, it'll have a nice intro. And then the last two are kind of the two outliers. They're more contemporary. We have Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I've been wanting to read something by Cormac McCarthy forever, and I always thought Blood Meridian was the first place I would go. And this was like $4, and it's a hardcover, and I prefer hardcovers. So anyway, I have that. And then lastly, Dante's Drum Kit by Douglas Dunn, a book of poetry published. I actually don't know when it was published. I want to say 1993. So I grabbed this when I saw it because there's a great quote from one of the poems in here that I read in what's her name? Kay Redfield Jamison, that's her name. Kay Redfield Jamison wrote a book about suicide and had a very beautiful quote from one of the poems that's in here. And so I've been wanting to read Douglas Dunn ever since then. So when I saw this, I almost flipped out because he seemed kind of like an obscure poet that wouldn't be available in many places. But yeah, so I have a book by him to read. So yeah, and there's one more book that I don't have with me because I think I also left that in my friend's car. I got it at the bookstore in Denton, but it was The American Religion by Harold Bloom. Sorry I can't put the picture of the cover up here for you. I don't really know how to do that. But yeah, The American Religion by Harold Bloom. I'll try to remember to leave some kind of a link to it just in case you're curious. It's as I understand it, he talks about a religion in America and how it affects our national character, I guess. And it sounded really interesting. He kind of, he has this thing he calls religious criticism, and I don't really know what that is yet, but I was intrigued when I heard of it. And, I've read a book by Harold Bloom now. I've read a book that he edited with an introduction, and I like his writing, so I think I should like that. So, yeah, anyway, that is just a haul for my return to BookTube. Yeah, if anybody's read any of these books, I would love to hear about them. Anyway, I will try to get back into making videos soon. So, yeah, thanks guys. Bye.